Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, the editor-in-chief of Total Retail. I'm here at the CRMC show in Chicago, and I'm pleased to be joined on this episode by Allie Ferguson, who is the head of loyalty and personalization at Honda. We're going to talk to Allie a little bit about some of the interesting work that Honda is doing in the loyalty space. So thanks for joining me today, Allie.
Thanks so much. Good morning.
So to get us started, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your role at Honda. I kind of, in my research, seen that you've been with the organization a little more than a year now. So tell us a little bit about your position at Honda.
Yeah, I've come to Honda after about 20 years in loyalty and personalization as the company really seeks to get closer to its customers, really understand why and how to make customers loyal, and to really bring a new discipline to the company. So I joined about a year ago to both develop our loyalty program as well as to lead our strategy for leveraging data across experiences to really make them more personalized and relevant for customers.
And having been in the position a little bit more than a year now, tell me kind of what you enjoy about it. It's kind of a unique company and a unique challenge, I would imagine, within the automobile space for loyalty. So tell me a little bit what you're enjoying about the job.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a trifecta, if you will, of opportunity and fun really at Honda with loyalty and personalization. One, of course, is a great brand. Often I tell people that I've joined Honda organization and they'll immediately tell me a story about Honda, about their Honda or their first Honda and so forth. So that's rich territory for both loyalty and personalization, both capturing those stories and sharing them with others, and really the emotional element that's super important in a modern loyalty experience. Secondly is the category. In particular, our company has a rich offering not only of automobiles, but other devices such as our Moto Compacto, clearly our services, our finance company, even airplanes and power equipment, and so forth. So it's a rich territory to build a Honda collection, if you will, and that's a real opportunity for us to see what the real potential of each relationship is and use loyalty and personalization strategy and activation to build the relationship. And finally, I think the market is just so interesting right now, as we've seen here at CRMC, a lot of shift towards experience, emotional connection, AI, and these other new levers. Having been in loyalty for over 20 years, it's great to always be a student of what's going on in the market, and those innovations are certainly what we're thinking about at Honda.
So let's talk specifically a little bit more about the category and in particular automobiles for Honda. I think that's probably their best known product line. Given the kind of longer buying cycle for cars, you're not going out and buying a car every year. Can you talk a little bit about how Honda is, what tactics and techniques it's using to engage consumers throughout that extended period where they're not necessarily buying a vehicle, but there's probably other things that you're trying to engage them with through, such as services and other ways that you want to communicate. So talk a little bit about that longer buying cycle and how you maintain engagement.
Yeah, I love that question. And really loyalty as opposed to personalization, which kind of spans the entire journey from awareness to advocacy. Loyalty to us really lives in the ownership experience. It's an interesting business model because a lot of people now lease vehicles, which is sort of a predictable subscription, if you will, where about every 3 years someone is likely to entertain a new vehicle. So that's kind of one dynamic where we can enable the person to enjoy our servicing and other digital services and so forth, and really build a sticky relationship and reward them and recognize them for example, taking great care of that car so that they return it to us in excellent condition, which increases the resale value for us. And perhaps we should share some of that gain in value with our customers. So really making them a stakeholder in the value of the car and taking care of the car is certainly true for our lease customers. And then our owners who choose a more longer life cycle, we want them to be a multi-Honda family. We want people to fill their garage with Honda products and services, really connecting them to our digital properties in both cases, and creating more ways for them to engage, not just with Honda, but of course our partners that we have now, like Disney or Topgolf or those sort of partners, but also grow that network of partners over time so that we're more present in their everyday lives. So I think that's a hint at our strategic direction.
Yeah, it provides some great insight there. Kind of in a similar manner, given the infrequency of purchase in the category, talk a little bit about what you're doing to continue the relationship with buyers, given that they're probably not walking into a Honda showroom per se very frequently, but there's other ways that you want to kind of continue that relationship.
Yeah, that's a great thought. And to add to what I was talking about before, you mentioned dealers. And I think if you look in the modern context, some of our fierce competitors are taking a non-dealer route to interacting with customers. And I doubt that's the direction for Honda. It's more how do we make our dealers enabled to deliver the best experience to customers by providing them with data and insights that might help them both serve and sell the customer. But also, how could the dealership be a community hub of sorts where events or other ways that might involve safety or kids or getting your first electric vehicle, for example, how do we make those dealerships a more attractive place to bring owners into, as well, really local partnerships more on that thread in communities. Also, Honda's quite known for its social and environmental commitments, and how do we bring that content and engagement into local communities. So I think that's kind of one thread. And then the other would be, of course, creating more value, gamification, and interest in things like the Honda Link or Acura Link apps, and making sure we're building value and fun when consumers engage with us. So that could look like a digital twin of your car that you could race in a Honda racing environment. It could be early access for our loyal customers to a new model of a Honda Civic or Acura TLX. I'm using those as examples, but really creating a sense of membership with the brand, a sense of badging and ownership, and reasons to look out for the news and doings at Honda.
So, Ali, you've done a great job of kind of laying out the loyalty and personalization roadmap at Honda. My follow-up to that is, can you talk about how you're leveraging technology and how that's impacting the way you think about customer loyalty at Honda? That's kind of the underpinning of that strategy that you laid out. Talk about what the thought process is there at Honda.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, being a new department at Honda and a new leader at Honda, and in today's market in particular, I think as loyalty marketers, we're challenged to come into the environment and make sure we're leveraging as much as possible of the technology that's already in place, rather than bringing a whole new stack to the company. How do we use the CDP? How do we use the MarTech stack, such as Salesforce, and our app and our web and our existing digital properties? So as we were looking at loyalty technology, we were looking really for more modern technology that's headless, that's integratable with current architectures and experiences, and rather light in that perspective. So we had to really go to some newer players in the market in order to find what we're looking for. And similarly with personalization, we're really trying to leverage our CDP, the tools that it provides in customer journey orchestration, and then really connecting that to our channels throughout Honda, such as our email and so forth, through our Salesforce platform. So really being incremental to the MarTech stack, we're really leveraging the horsepower of the existing technology rather than a monolithic standalone loyalty platform.
Have those been rather recent investments you've made at Honda? Tell us a little bit about kind of the technology strategy there, and because it's such an evolving space, and you think about wanting to keep pace. So how do you guys at Honda kind of measure how the technology they're using and it's working and its effectiveness, and thinking about continually investing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we chose a CDP route and are in the process of learning how a CDP is really different from a classic CRM infrastructure, and being as agile, both literally in how we operate in a safe, agile environment, but literally how we leverage the CDP to really focus on audiences and signals and trafficking information through our channels and innovating quickly and getting to market quickly with the right attributes and models, focus on next best action and things of that nature. So I think that's one thing, is how do we align our use cases to our business goals and focus on the right part of the journey and be quick about it, and take short wins and grow from there. So I think that's part of on the personalization front. And then on the loyalty front, we've really, like I said, chose a technology partner that we think is innovative, who's looking to try new things and again work in an incremental and agile fashion to get executives aligned. In other words, thinking about a ask in the millions and not in the tens of millions to get started, and then being rather entrepreneurial from there.
Yeah, getting that organizational buy-in first, and then it's obviously critical.
Exactly.
As we're here at CRMC, there's always a lot of conversations that are happening, and it's a good way to kind of understand what's happening in the marketplace, particularly around loyalty and CRM. So with that in mind, is there a trend or opportunity within the loyalty sector that you believe you're well positioned to capitalize on in Honda? And if so, what would that be and why?
Someone on my team who joined recently from Honda Japan said after he saw the presentations yesterday, Allie, I really feel like even more confident that we're moving in the right direction. And he's rather new in the space, and I've been in the space for a long time, and try to continuously learn and challenge myself to think more modern. And I guess I'd say, as coming into the space a little bit later in the game, how can we leverage things like experience and the assets we already have as a company and bring them to our customers? I saw some presentations yesterday, like the Panera presentation, how they really kept it simple and looked at segments, but also did sort of a personalized experience strategy or anthropology, who leaned out of points and really leaned into in-store experience and personalization and getting the next category in the shopping basket, so to speak. And then brands that are kind of well established as leaders talking to in the hallway. We're inspired by brands like Nike, like Sephora, who have been long time leaders in loyalty because of the communities they build and the digital experiences that they brought to the table. And we're leaning in those directions and are inspired to challenge ourselves to break the norm, so to speak.
And one of the ways that you're doing that, or attempting to do that at Honda, is to personalize the customer relationship. Tell us a little bit about some of the ways you're trying to do that. Obviously, the data that you're collecting about your customers, perhaps the vehicle that they bought, so then that's another data set that you can try to personalize based on, service levels and when they purchased and things like that. So tell us a little bit about that personalization piece with your customers at Honda.
Yeah, the personalization piece is more broad and in both the scale of the journey and the number of owners that we have the opportunity to influence, starting with our media channel and outreaching at the right time to audiences who are ready to buy, and offering them the right product, but in a classic marketing sense, doing our best to align that with the price they may be able or willing to pay in their modality of ownership versus lease. So, the sales process clearly being important and increasingly competitive environment, to not just capture people when you're in the market to buy a car, because it's rather binary. You're either shopping for a car or you're not. So getting more fidelity around that, given that you don't buy it that frequently, I think is part of it. Understanding the household dynamics is pretty important, and whether there's opportunity to expand the garage, I think, and certainly with teens or children, and passing on your car maybe to your kid and getting yourself a new one, I think is kind of a fertile territory for both personalization and loyalty, and really understanding the household composition, not just from third-party data, but from zero-party data. And that's certainly an important part of our personalization strategy, where exploring an opportunity with Jebit, who's here at the conference and who's made a great impression. So I think that's been really innovative and fun. And then really more mold breaking at Honda is understanding what their next best auto is, just thinking about the automobile sector for a moment. Some people are fans of the Honda Accord or the CRV. I'll use my mother, for example. She's had 5 CRVs. She wants a CRV. She just keeps getting the new model. And she, every 3 years, gets excited about what's next in her next CRV. And she's a leaser. But some people like to elevate their driving experience as they advance in income and or age, if you will. And they want to go from a Civic to an Accord to a maybe an MDX or RDX if they have children. And that sort of breaks the mold of the brands selling in not competing with each other, for lack of a better way of saying that. But if you're focused on the customer, then you're agnostic to which model they buy. You want them to have the best model that they want at the time. So understanding what they need, and again, their ability to pay and price accordingly. So I think that's part of it, as well as just optimization of our incentives, of our coupons that we issue, hundreds of millions of service coupons in any given year. Those need to be optimized for the right time using telematics data and things of that nature to get the timing right and the offer right, to keep people using both Honda service, but also our genuine parts, which is going to, in our opinion, keep the car in its best condition. So lots of fertile ground, as well as digital services as we bring more and more of those on board to customize the actual in-vehicle experience. So it's a very broad paintbrush for us to work with different teams.
That's a great point too, about kind of that brand affinity. And as you think about the household too, so like, parents own a Honda, multiple Honda vehicles, possibly passing that down to children. They've got this affinity for Honda. They're then going out and buying perhaps even a higher level vehicle from Honda. So you kind of get that incremental spend within a household as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked, a lot about some of the tactics and techniques you've put in place at Honda around loyalty and personalization. Tell us a little bit about the measurement process then. How you constantly monitoring the effectiveness of your efforts? What are you looking at in terms of metrics, KPIs, to kind of keep you on track?
Yeah, this might not be surprising to hear, but as engineers, Honda has a lot of fidelity around measurement and metrics. And I'd say more than any company I've worked with as a loyalty consultant, Honda takes KPIs to heart and really seeks in a both operating and agile, but in an innovation sense, welcomes failures as much as successes and expects them, and has a rigid KPI expectation to the senior level. And I think that keeps us all making sure that we're measuring success and innovating to the best experience or outcome. I think for loyalty, it's really, if I had to keep it simple, it's really lifetime value. And to us, that has to do with longevity, frequency, and of course, the breadth of services that a customer takes from Honda. So I think that's clearly important, but on an emotional level, we're really trying to more deeply understand emotional loyalty, and did a study recently with some students at UC Berkeley, the Voyager Consulting Group there, and really dug into emotional loyalty and learned more about attributes of trust and safety and belonging and community engagement, and what those really mean, so that we have a rich approach to impacting both transactional and emotional loyalty, because the upper right quadrant in that imaginary quadrant is going to really be someone who's both a lifetime customer but also an advocate. So I think that is a great exercise to figure out, how do we actually not just measure it, emotional loyalty, but how do we map that into a database more practically. And then I think with personalization, it is, I guess, largely focused on the notion of improving cross-channel tracking and engagement, really being able to find the customer where they are and hit the metric in that part of the journey, whichever channel they're in. So for example, some people will go online and do a Google search to look for a car, then they'll go to the brand site, then they may go into a dealership, then they may go back to the brand website, then they might schedule a test drive, then they may ask a friend, then they may go back to the dealer. I'm making this long for the reason on purpose that some people have a very long buying cycle.
Yeah.
And even understanding the nature of the journeys that people take and how we follow them and or accelerate them is some of our metric layout for personalization is largely around journey stage and how we know that someone's entered and or exited the stage of the journey and moving them through and increasing the conversion at any given level in the journey through personalization.
Yeah, to your point, this is a big ticket item. This is a big investment, so they want, they're not going to go, and it's not like going in and buying a T-shirt at an apparel store.
Exactly.
There's some research involved here, and you want to be present and and be there with the right messaging and the right connected journey for the customer across all those different touch points, and you're trying to do that at Honda.
Yeah, I feel if someone we can read the signals of their behavior by what they're doing because they're tagged in the site where someone's interacting, particularly if they're logged in, which is a whole other purpose for loyalty, of course, is to give value to the customer so they'll authenticate when they interact with Honda. But we want to read the signals and respond accordingly. So if someone is on our website reading a lot of detail on BEV education or learning about electric vehicles, then we know they might be considering an electric vehicle, but they're probably not ready to purchase because they're still in the education phase. So we may want to intervene with an opportunity for them either to read more information in other articles or learn about the financial benefits of EVs, or even to call our concierge that we now have to help people through that buying process. Whereas if they're doing test drive, building and pricing an automobile, we'd say they're probably more in the pre-purchase part of their journey, and we want to close the deal. We want to make a good offer or get them into the dealership as soon as possible or drive them into our digital sales process to really close the sale. So being sensitive to the customer and reading signals to best either understand where they are in the journey, as well as laying over the attributes we know about them as a customer to present the right content is kind of the golden path for us.
Yeah, and that's critical. And I'm sure that you get it right, that results in conversion, right?
That's what we're shooting for ultimately.
Yeah,
correct.
Well, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank Allie Ferguson, again, the head of loyalty and personalization at Honda, for joining us on this episode of Total Retail Talks here at CRMC. Thank you, Allie.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.